Thanks for joining me here. My name is Valerie Bott, and I want to share with you my story of how I became half the person that I used to be. I'm really excited about this video, but also really nervous. But I'm here to tell you about my own journey, and I hope that it's helpful to someone else out there like me. If we haven't met before, I'm an artist and musician, and I live in Boulder, Colorado with my husband of over 21 years. I've mostly been using this channel to share my acoustic performances of popular songs. And a lot of people have noticed that I've gotten progressively smaller in my videos and have asked me what's going on. So I just wanted to share my story and explain the gist of how I lost half my body weight and went from about 280 pounds to about 140 pounds and how I'm keeping it off. I'll be making more in-depth videos about some of these topics, but please let me know if there's anything that you'd like to hear more about. And let me say that I am no expert. This is just my story of what worked for me and what did not. You should always consult your own doctor before changing your diet at all. And please don't take any of this as advice. It's just my story. I was a chubby kid growing up in a small West Texas town, and I was overweight through my teenage years and into college. I'll talk a little more about being a fat kid later on in this video. So after graduation, I moved to Florida, and I got the worst hospital job. And I just gained weight. I just kept gaining weight, a lot of it. By my mid-20s, I weighed more than my bathroom scale would register, somewhere above 270 on that analog dial. I think it was about 280 pounds, but honestly, it could have been more. I was miserable, especially in the Florida heat, and finding any clothes that fit was really difficult. My mobility really began to suffer. And so I worked really hard, and I lost the weight, or a lot of it. I joined the local university gym with my husband, and after a lot of early morning 90-minute workouts, I lost 100 pounds, and I was about 180 pounds when I was age 29. I truly thought that that was as low as my body would go. Like, still with a BMI in the overweight category, though. Then we moved 3 times in 3 years to 3 different states. And even though I kept to a good workout routine, I just kept gaining weight. Really slowly, only about, a pound or less than a pound a month. But I wasn't actually monitoring my weight on a scale. It's tough to really know that for sure. But after 15 years and badly injuring 3 of my 4 limbs and just getting older, my weight had become unmanageable. And I had gotten back to at least 230 pounds. It was severely affecting my mobility. It was causing severe pain, and I even had an MRI which found that I was forming cysts along my spine and my hips in response to the excess load that I'm carrying around. I was sent to physical therapy to see if they could help, and there I was prescribed traction. And I really credit traction for helping me understand how my weight itself was causing my pain. That may sound silly, but as a survivor of childhood abuse, I'm very disconnected from my body and have never felt much ownership of my own body, if that makes sense. So the traction gave me a deep understanding of how weight directly affected my pain level in a whole new way. So they strapped my chest down to a table, and my hips were connected to this machine that gently pulls at your spine. And over a half-hour session, it would pull from about 50 to 100 pounds of weight. And I slowly started to realize how much pain the weight itself was causing. It was heavy. So after several sessions of laying there, I had this thought, if I could lose 50 pounds, then I could maybe have that level of pain relief all the time. But I very much doubted that I could actually lose the weight. I couldn't exercise. I could barely move. And I'd always linked weight loss to exercise pretty strictly. And the doctors were suggesting a liquid diet, which just freaked me out. It felt like deprivation and punishment and not a realistic solution. So I doubted myself. But I made a plan to get started, and I asked my husband for help. And he was honestly amazing. He was really tired of seeing me in so much pain. And I'll get more into the details, but by diet alone, I've lost 80 pounds from December 2019 to October 2020 and have maintained that weight loss now for more than a year. A lot has changed for me with the weight loss, including some things that I didn't expect. You see, I was always the fat kid. Even though looking back now, I was never really more than chubby until my teens, and then only overweight. But in my mind, I've always been enormous. I was told I had fat genes, like my dad's side of the family, and I was big boned. And I had an anorexic sibling, and I was often compared to her. I think I was 7 when I was put on my first diet, but I'd already been switched to non-fat milk by kindergarten. It really wasn't just the food itself that led to my obesity. It was also just the strange food culture that I was brought up in. I was required to clean my plate, no matter how much food I was served, and I wasn't allowed to serve myself. I'd be stuck at the dinner table for hours just trying to swallow down like too much cold casserole, and I learned to overeat in order to please other people. To never refuse food that someone made for you because that would hurt their feelings. At the same time, hunger was a dirty word in our house, and I wasn't allowed to eat when I was hungry. Like when I came home from school. So leaving me to snack on anything I could find and stuff it down quickly before I was caught. I felt guilty for eating when I was hungry, and a failure for not being able to eat everything I was expected to. I was eating too many calories, but was hungry since so much of it was diet foods or fat-free foods that left me feeling really unsatisfied. I was made to believe I was extremely obese when I was only about 20 pounds overweight. So when I did eventually become obese, it felt unavoidable. The family curse. Bad genes. Likewise, when I regained a lot of weight in my 30s, I thought it was just inevitable, my lot in life, just who I am. And honestly, I didn't hate being fat. Not until it caused me physical pain. And even then, I suffered for years before I made a change. I was happy in fat, active in fat. I even connected my size to my big singing voice on stage. I was a big proponent of self-love. But yet, I realize now it's not loving to think that you have limited potential. It's not loving to allow yourself to feel miserable because you think that's just how you're destined to be. One of my best friends lent me this book, Thinking Fast and Slow, a few months before I started this last weight loss journey. The book's not about weight loss at all. It's about biases in our thinking. There's one line that really stood out to me, that we don't recognize the cumulative effect of small changes. Some people underestimate and some people overestimate. And this simple bias in estimation is the entire crux of my own personal weight gain. My old diet wasn't bad. It really wasn't much different than what I'm eating now. But I was underestimating how much I was eating and how many calories were in my servings. And only by about 50 to 100 calories a day. I wasn't so far off, but cumulative changes add up in the long term. And without the understanding of how I could actually control my weight, by being more accurate, for which you just really need a digital scale. I would measure my food before, but with cups and tablespoons, not understanding how inaccurate I was being. Just enough to easily account for this extra 100 calories just right there. If you're generous with a cup measurement by 10% every time, that adds up fast and it seems invisible. Buying a digital scale was the most important thing I purchased to lose weight, and it cost less than $20. I tracked my food intake with the Lose It app in the beginning, but I don't recommend that app over any other, and honestly, I moved to tracking on pen and paper because I didn't like all the extra features and the advertising that the apps include. Tracking is really key. Learning to divorce exercise from weight loss has also helped me a lot. We all need exercise, but I was too big for my joints to handle the strain, and I was doing more harm than good. My physical therapist had me doing water walking in the pool, which I initially resisted because it felt silly. But it gave my legs a chance to function without so much strain. But I don't do exercise to burn calories or to keep my weight under control. I've since started doing longer walks and hikes, and some body weight exercises for strength, and some yoga too, but I don't try to manage my weight through exercise. I use exercise now to manage my mental health, my stress, and to slowly build up my cardiovascular strength. And knowing I'm doing it for those reasons makes it a lot easier for me to make time to exercise. Even while I was losing weight, I didn't try to burn calories through exercise. Exercise makes me hungry. It makes it hard to stay under a calorie level. And I could never exercise long enough or hard enough to counter the difference of one post-workout snack. I stretched and I did take some short walks, but I didn't try to rely on exercise to help me lose weight. I relied on it to help me feel better, to calm my mind, to give me time out in nature, but not for weight loss. Just focusing on my diet was my only work, and I did that without depriving myself or having any off-limit foods. In fact, I ate a half serving of Cheetos every day, exactly 14 grams weighed out. It's a great 80-calorie snack, and it feels like a real treat. I also like to eat a little bit of chocolate every night after dinner. It's about 130 calories worth, including some dark chocolate. For me, when I feel deprived of something, I lose a lot of motivation. Is life truly worth it if you can't have peanut M&Ms without an after-dinner treat, without Cheetos? I don't think so. It's just about weighing accurately and budgeting in those necessities. What's necessary for you into your daily plan, which I'll talk about more. For example, I realized how much of a difference I notice when eating full-fat dairy products. They make me feel so much more satisfied than the low or non-fat options, and I enjoy them so much more. I'd never even had full-fat cottage cheese before 2020. I thought I just hated cottage cheese, but I hate non-fat cottage cheese. It's so watery and rubbery and unsatisfying because it has no fat. I grew up always thinking that eating fat made you fat, but really not eating fat makes you hungry. For me, non-fat dairy is a waste of calories when I think about strategizing my calorie budget, which I'll talk about more in detail in my next video. But here is the general strategy that I used, which allowed me to lose 80 pounds in about 10 months, which is about 8 pounds a month or about 2 pounds a week. There are 3,500 calories in a pound. So I created a diet plan that put me 7,000 calories under each week, or about 1,000 calories a day. For me, that was 1,450 calories a day to start off. As I lost weight, I did have to adjust my calorie total down to compensate. But knowing what my calorie budget was, I could choose the foods that I wanted to eat to get to that limit. Not to say that I only ate junk, but I just didn't say it was off limits. I did realize that the cleaner that you can prepare a meal, the more you can eat for fewer calories. The more nutrient-rich food that I chose, the more satisfied that I am. And the fat and carbohydrates and proteins, they're all necessary nutrients. So now I'm a little over a year at being a consistent, healthy weight that's appropriate for my height. I have a 5-pound interval that I stay between, and I weigh myself at the same time each morning. That's telling me that the amount of calories that I'm eating each day is appropriate. I don't track my food as religiously as I used to, but I do have very regular eating patterns, so I know how many calories I'm eating a day, and I still measure every serving of Cheetos. If I plan to eat out at a restaurant or have a giant cinnamon roll with my coffee, I just need to account for that, just like I would a money budget. I can save up for a week beforehand if I know it's happening, or cut back a little bit for a week if I don't. But I can only do that if I truly know how many calories I'm actually eating. I'll tell you that I honestly believe that as an adult human, that I was supposed to eat 2,000 calories a day, because that's what's on the side of every box of food that I've ever eaten. But if I did that now, I would gain back all the weight really quickly. I can only eat about 1,600 calories a day to maintain my weight, and up to 200 calories more if I'm super active. I know that number sounds really low to most people, and it sounds like an impossible number to me even now. But when I measure my food to have appropriate servings, I can get all the variety in without breaking the budget. I'll show some examples of my daily food journals in the next video. I think that will help show how much food you can really pack into a small calorie budget. It does no one good to feel like they're starved or deprived of what they enjoy, or even feel like they're being punished. It's a lot easier when you start by being kind to yourself, by giving yourself the space to grow and change and mess up and start again. I guess the biggest thing I learned about weight loss is that your fat is not who you are. It feels like it. I get it. It feels like your identity. It felt like people expected me to be fat, that my genetics foretold it, that I just had no choice. But I did have a choice. I did have the power to change. I had the power to remove a huge source of pain and discomfort from my life in a relatively short time. And so do you. Our potentials are so much greater than any of us realize. And we need to stop allowing other people to tell us who we are or who we can be. Losing weight hasn't solved all my problems, but it has made so much of life more accessible, more manageable, and more enjoyable. I have more energy, more motivation, and more hope for my own future, and so much less pain. It's helped me to see all the ways that I've limited myself because of expectations I believe I needed to follow, or because of potential I didn't realize I had. It also helps me heal my relationship with food, where it's not my enemy, but a joy, giving me energy to do the work that I want to accomplish. It's not an event in itself. The most surprising thing I've learned from this weight loss is how my body has responded. I really feared the loose skin, terrified of it, honestly. It was one reason I had to not lose weight, because I thought I would look so much worse with so much hanging skin from my arms and belly. Well, I'm happy to report that my fears were grossly overinflated. My skin is a little loose around my belly, but not much more than any woman my age, honestly. In this past year of maintenance, my body has continued to tighten up, and my clothing size kept going down. In fact, I'm wearing 2 sizes below what I was wearing last November when I stopped losing weight, with no change at all on the scale. At my highest weight, I was wearing a size 24 or a 3X, and now I'm wearing a small or a size 4. Even my feet lost weight. I had to throw out all my size 11 wide width shoes and for size 10s in a regular width. I can wear high heels with no pain at all, which I did not believe was possible. I'm also able to do a lot more physically for longer periods and without needing so much recovery time afterward, which has really freed me up to get to do more things that I love to do. But I'm still working on a bit of body dysmorphia. I often forget that I'm not fat, and I'm shocked when I see myself in the mirror. It doesn't look like me. I don't understand what other people see when they look at me, and I don't quite understand the difference in reception that I get as a thin person. So I'd walked into this little small clothing boutique this summer, just wandering by, and thought I'd see what they have. And at first I thought they had mistaken me for someone else, like someone famous or important. But, my husband witnessed it and he explained, they just wanted to sell me clothes. I'd never been treated so nice, but I just never been in a store where I fit into all the clothes before. I'm so used to the worried, fearful glances of store clerks, afraid I'll ask to try on clothes that I couldn't possibly fit into. I took the previous rejection very personally. They didn't want someone like me to wear their clothes, but it wasn't personal. It was situational. And I changed my situation. I didn't change my identity, but I did learn to love myself a lot better. And that's made all the difference. I really want to thank you for listening to my story. Please let me know what you think. And if you come away with anything at all, I hope it's that you don't limit your own potential. You have the power to be whoever you choose to be, and you are not limited by your current circumstances. This world wants to see you succeed and wants you to live the most happy, satisfied, and productive life. Our possibilities are beyond our imagination. Your potential has no limits. I'm working on a follow-up video to be a lot more specific about how my personal diet plan worked for me, with some additional details about how I measure my food, about intermittent fasting, and about using your calorie budget strategically. I hope you come back for that one. Please subscribe to my channel for my regular music videos and for more content like this to come. I'd love to connect with you on Instagram or Facebook at ValerieBottMusic, or you can visit me at my website, valerie-music.com. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you again soon.